The knock echoed through the quiet house, pulling me from the kitchen where supper dishes still steamed on the counter. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door to find Emma standing there, her truck idling in the drive under a sky turning bruised purple. She held our old high school yearbook, its cover faded like the fields after harvest. "Brought this," she said, voice low, eyes meeting mine with a weight I couldn't place. We hadn't seen each other in years, not since she left for the city, but that look pulled at something buried. I stepped aside, the screen door creaking shut behind us. As we sat on the worn couch, the air already felt thicker, like before a storm rolls in from the ridges. Emma set the yearbook between us on the coffee table, the dim lamp casting long shadows across the room. Dust motes danced in the light as she brushed the cover with her thumb, like testing the give of old leather reins. I leaned in, the familiar scent of her, hay and faint engine oil, hitting me first. "Remember how we used to hide this under the bleachers?" she asked, flipping it open. Her laugh came easy, but it didn't reach her eyes. We started with the early pages, those stiff group shots from freshman year. There we were, arms slung around each other in the back row, faces all elbows and braces. The small town had pressed us close back then. Endless afternoons kicking dust on the dirt roads, sharing smokes behind the grain elevator. "You were always the one dragging me into trouble," I said, pointing to a photo of us at the county fair, cotton candy stuck in our hair. She chuckled, but her fingers paused on the edge of the page. The isolation of those days crept back, the way the fields stretched out forever, trapping secrets like water in a dry creek bed. She turned the pages slower now, to junior year, where the photos got a little bolder. Prom night, us in hand-me-down dresses, posing with fake smiles while the boys hung back awkward. We recalled the whispers we'd trade walking home from school, about dreams bigger than the horizon. "That summer we fixed the old fence line," Emma said, her voice softening. "You climbed that post like it was nothing. I watched you the whole time." Her hand lingered on a picture of us mending wire, sweat on our brows, the sun low behind the barn. I felt the room shrink, the walls holding in the heat from the stove earlier. Laughter bubbled up again as we hit the candid shots, me spilling punch at the dance, her stealing fries from my tray in the cafeteria. But under it, something shifted. The small town weight we'd both carried, the way folks watched every move, made those memories feel heavier now. Emma's posture straightened, like a horse sensing thunder. She traced the outline of our faces in a group photo by the river, where we'd skip stones till dark. "We told each other everything back then," she murmured. Or almost everything. The air between us thickened, unspoken things pressing like damp earth after rain. I poured coffee from the pot, black and strong, handing her a mug. Steam rose between us as we kept flipping, the pages whispering. Senior superlatives next. Most likely to leave, that was her. I got most dependable, stuck in the routine. We joked about it, but her gaze lingered longer on the photos, like searching for something lost in the grain. The evening outside hummed with crickets, the rural quiet amplifying every pause. Her knee brushed mine accidentally, and neither of us moved away. Those school days felt alive again, the bond we'd forged in isolation pulling taut. As the lamp flickered, we reached the sports pages. There was Emma in her rodeo gear, gripping the saddle horn tight, and me beside her, holding the rope. "You were always steady," she said, hands still on that image. The laughter faded then, her finger pointing to a faded shot of us after a game, arms linked, faces flushed. Something in her eyes changed, drawing me in deeper. That faded shot captured us at 16. Arms linked after the rodeo, our faces flushed from the dust and the thrill. The photo had yellowed at the edges, like old newsprint left in the barn loft. Emma's finger rested there, steady, but her eyes traced the lines of my younger self, braces glinting, hair tangled from the wind off the fields. "Look at us," she said, voice dropping like gravel under tires. "So awkward, all limbs and no clue." I nodded, the image pulling me back to those endless afternoons. The way the sun baked the earth until everything felt too tight, too close. We lingered on that page, the awkwardness of our teenage selves staring back. Mine showed me in oversized jeans trying to look tough by the fence line, a hammer in hand from helping Dad with repairs. Hers was sharper, always moving. Roping cabs at the fair, her stance wide and unyielding. The rural sprawl framed every shot. Cornstalks stretching to the horizon, the single road winding out like a vein through the dirt. It amplified everything back then. The confinement of knowing every face, every secret path through the woods. No escape but the sky. And even that felt watchful. She flipped to another, a candid from the school bus stop. Us huddled against the wind, shoulders touching, sharing a thermos of coffee stolen from home. "Remember the dreams we whispered about?" Emma asked, her breath catching on the word. "Leaving this place, seeing cities where folks didn't know your business before you walked in?" I laughed, soft, but it stuck in my throat. We'd trade stories of hidden crushes, mine on faceless boys from books, safe and distant. Hers vaguer, always circling back to the freedom of just running. Unspoken dreams hung between us then, like mist over the morning fields, thick and hard to see through. The isolation made it worse, those endless acres pressing in, turning thoughts inward until they twisted. Emma's hand stilled on a photo from the river bend, where we'd skip stones till our arms ached. Water rushed shallow behind us in the shot, our feet bare on the bank, toes digging into mud. "I always watched you different," she said, not looking up. Her voice was even, like stating the weather, but it landed heavy. "Not like the others. The way you moved through it all, fixing wire, laughing at nothing. It pulled at me." The room went still, the clock ticking louder against the night outside. Those fields had trapped us both, the confinement breeding silences we mistook for safety. I brushed it off with a joke, forcing a grin. "Yeah, well, you were the one always staring at the horizon like it owed you something." But my heart quickened, thudding against my ribs like a calf testing the gate. Her words reframed the past. The glances I'd caught and dismissed, the warmth of her shoulder against mine on cold bus rides. The rural quiet amplified it now, the wind rattling the windows like it carried echoes. We'd hidden so much in plain sight, the unspoken dreams festering under the weight of expectation. She turned another page, slower, to graduation day. Caps tossed, but our eyes found each other in the crowd, a moment caught mid-laugh. The backdrop was the football field. Bleachers, empty now in memory. The fields beyond, swallowing the noise. "Those crushes we talked about," Emma murmured. "Mine weren't what you thought." Her admission hung there, light as dust, but settling deep. I felt the pull, the confinement of years, cracking open. The air thickened further, the endless rural stretch outside mirroring the stretch inside me. Emma closed the book then, the snap echoing soft. Her voice dropped lower, ready for what came next. Emma's fingers drummed once on the closed yearbook, the sound sharp in the quiet room. She looked up then, her eyes steady, unflinching, like she'd been practicing this in the rearview mirror on the drive back. "I've always preferred women," she said, the words landing flat and true, no hitch in her breath. It wasn't a question or a plea, just fact, carved out like splitting wood with an axe. The lamplight caught the edge of her jaw, tense but set. I sat there, mug halfway to my lips, the coffee gone cold. She didn't rush it, letting the statement settle like dust after a truck passes. Her gaze held mine, searching, not for shock, but for something deeper, like testing if the ground would hold. "It started clear back in school," she went on, voice even, pulling threads from the past. "Those glances I threw your way, the way I'd linger when we were alone by the river. I dated a couple guys to fit in, quick, awkward things that ended before they began. But in the city, I found spaces where it made sense. A woman at the garage where I worked, her hands rough like mine from engines. We shared smokes after shifts, and one night it clicked, no hiding." Her eyes didn't waver, tracing my face for the flinch that didn't come, or maybe for the spark that might. The silence stretched after that, long and empty like the road out front, winding dark under the moon. Crickets scraped outside, the only sound breaking the weight in here. My mind raced, unburying memories I'd packed tight. The way her laugh would pull me close during those bus rides, her arm brushing mine, sending heat I chalked up to the summer air. Those stolen moments mending fences, her eyes on me longer than needed, and me turning away quick, heart thudding like boots on hardpack. I'd buried it deep, under layers of routine and small-town nods, convincing myself it was just the closeness of friends in isolation. But now, reframed, those glances burned fresh, pulling at threads I thought sewn shut. Emma leaned forward, elbows on knees, the yearbook shifting under her hands. "This truth's been mine a long time," she said, framing it simple, like stating the lay of the land. Held it close, shared it in pieces with folks who earned it. Coming back here, seeing you, it felt right to lay it out. No more half-shadows. Her words hung there, not demanding but inviting, like leaving a gate unlatched for the horse to choose. The air between us thickened, charged with the unsaid, her confession pulling me to the edge of my own silence. The rural night pressed in, wind sighing through the eaves, urging something forward. I set the mug down, the clink, loud in the hush. Her eyes stayed on me, patient, the weight of years in that look. Those buried memories swirled, her hand steadying me on a slippery bank, the warmth of it lingering. The way she'd watch me braid my hair after a swim, quiet and intent. I'd felt it then, a pull like gravity shifting underfoot, but fear clamped it down, the town's eyes too close, the fields too vast for secrets to breathe. Now, with her truth out, mine clawed up, demanding air. The silence stretched thinner, ready to snap. She waited, breath even, the unflinching tone wrapping around us like a shared blanket against the chill. No rush, just the truth shared, heavy as river stone but smooth from time. My pulse echoed the clock's tick, each second pulling harder toward my own edge, where the invitation waited. I froze there, body going heavy like I'd stepped into deep mud after a rain, the kind that pulls at your boots and won't let go. The words she'd just said settled in my chest, pressing down slow and sure, surprise wrapping around my ribs until breath came short. Emma sat still, her hands clasped now in her lap, knuckles pale against the dark fabric of her jeans. The yearbook lay forgotten between us, its pages a map we'd followed too far. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the loose pane in the window, carrying the low hum of frogs from the creek bed down the road. My mind flashed back, quick and sharp, to those childhood moments now lit different in her light. The time we'd crouched in the hayloft, sharing a stolen apple, her knee pressing mine in the tight space. I chalked it up to the warmth of the barn, the sun slanting through cracks like gold dust. Or the evening by the fire pit, embers popping as we talked late, her gaze lingering on my mouth when I laughed, and me shifting away, blaming the smoke stinging my eyes. Every brush of hands mending that fence line, every shared silence on the porch swing as dusk fell over the fields, all of it reframed now, colors shifting like the land after a long drought breaks. What had felt like easy friendship carried undercurrents I'd ignored, waves lapping at the shore until they wore it down. Why had we hidden this from each other all these years? The question clawed up inside, raw as a thorn snagged in skin. The small town wrapped us tight back then. Expectations like barbed wire around the pastures, step wrong, and everyone saw the blood. We'd both learned early to swallow truths, to nod along with the Sunday crowds at church, eyes on the horizon, instead of each other. Isolation bred that caution, the endless acres echoing back our own doubts until they sounded like the whole world's voice. Fear of losing the one steady thing in that confinement, maybe. Her, me. The bond that held against the wind. Or just the weight of it all, too heavy to name without cracking the ground beneath us. Emma waited, patient as a horse at the gate, her clasped hands unmoving, offering that quiet space without a word. No push, just the steady rise of her chest, matching the rhythm outside, where night sounds layered in. Crickets sawing steady, a distant owl calling through the dark. The room felt smaller, intimacy pressing close, like the walls after a heavy frost. Every creak of the floorboards underscoring the pull between us. Her eyes stayed soft, not demanding answers, but holding room for them. The rural hush amplifying the beat of my own heart, thudding like boots on frozen earth. Those flashes kept coming, unbidden. Her lending me her jacket on a chill bus ride, the fabric warm from her body, scent clinging long after. The way she'd stand close while we watched storms roll in from the ridge, shoulders nearly touching, thunder rumbling like unspoken words. I'd buried it all under daily grind, fixing gates and hauling feed, convincing myself the pull was just the closeness of survival in a place that left no room for more. But now, with her truth out, mine stirred, restless as dust in a dry wind. The surprise thawed slow, giving way to an ache that felt like recognition, long denied. Finally, I found my voice, rough at the edges like gravel under tires. "Tell me more," I said, leaning in, probing deeper into her journey, the words pulling us forward into the night. Emma nodded once, slow, like acknowledging the weight of the ask. She shifted on the couch, the springs creaking under her, and let out a breath that carried the scent of the cooling coffee. "It hit me first on the family farm," she started, voice threading back through the years. "Those mornings before dawn, mucking stalls alone while the house slept. The quiet out there, just me and the horses breathing steam into the cold. I'd catch myself watching the way the light fell on their flanks, soft curves in the dim. Then I'd shake it off, grab the pitchfork harder. But it stuck, that pull toward something softer, hidden in the routine." Her eyes drifted to the window, where the night pressed black against the glass. Fields invisible now, but felt in the bones. Small town like ours, expectations came with the air you breathed. Church on Sundays, eyes on every girl to pair off right, boys circling like they owned the ground. I tried fitting, smiles at dances, hands held loose under the bleachers, but it chafed, like a saddle cinched too tight. Nights I'd lie awake in my room, the quilt pulled high, scribbling letters to women I'd read about in magazines smuggled from the library. Distant connections, pen pals in cities where the streets didn't whisper back your name. I mailed them careful, no return address, heart thudding as the postbox swallowed the truth. She paused, fingers tracing the seam of her jeans, the motion steady, but revealing the old tension. There were moments back then, close to spilling it. Like that night after the fair, us walking the dirt road home, stars thick overhead. Your arm brushed mine, and I almost said it. How I'd dreamed of more than friendship. Your laugh pulling me like a current. But the words caught, pulled back by the fear of the fields echoing it wrong. Folks would talk, doors would close. So I swallowed, turned it to a joke about the rides. Happened again by the creek, water rushing past our feet. I leaned in close, breath mixing, but the silence won. Always did back then. Her gaze returned to me, strength in it like roots holding against a windstorm, resilience carved from years of quiet holding. The lines around her eyes spoke of that build, silences stacked like cordwood, fueling the fire to speak now. "City changed it some," she went on. "Found a bar on the edge of town, women like me, hands calloused from real work. Shared stories over beers, no hiding the looks. But coming back here, it all circles to you. The one constant, the anchor I didn't name." I listened, the words sinking in like rain on parched soil, stirring parallels I'd kept buried. Her farm mornings mirrored my own chores, the isolation twisting thoughts until they looped on her, the curve of her neck as she roped, the steady grip of her hand in mine during storms. Struggles echoed mine, those hidden letters I'd burned instead of sending, crushes unnamed to keep the peace. Near confessions I'd dodged too, her nearness sparking heat I'd blamed on the sun. Her resilience pulled at my own, unspoken things rising like mist off the morning grass. The conversation circled then, her question turning the mirror sharp. "What about you?" she asked, voice soft but direct, eyes holding mine in the lamplight. "All those years, did any of it pull the same way?" Her question hung there, simple as a thrown rope, but it caught me square. I felt the pull, years of buried glances tightening like wire under strain. The lamplight flickered, casting her face in soft edges, the kind that made the room feel smaller, the fields outside pressing closer. "It did," I said finally, voice scraping low, like boots on dry gravel. "More than I let on. Those moments by the river, your hand steadying me, it wasn't just friendship. But I pushed it down, hard. The town, the work. It all made room for nothing else. Emma's eyes held mine. No surprise there. Just a nod that eased something in my chest. She leaned back slight, the couch creaking under the shift, but the space between us shrank anyway. Our bond always carried more, she said, words measured, like laying out tools for a fix. Even back then, in the quiet of those fields, you were the one who saw me, really saw, without the weight of what folks expected. I held on to that, through the city nights and the jobs that ground you down. Coming back, it's like picking up a rein I dropped too soon. Her voice wrapped around the idea, not demanding, but opening a gate, the unspoken invitation clear in the tilt of her head, the way her fingers loosened on her knee. She described it then, the pull toward me as her anchor in that hidden life. In the city, I'd find pieces. Women with stories like mine, rough hands from garages or farms they'd left. But none stuck like you did. Your laugh cutting through the wind on those walks home. The way you'd stand with me against the storms rolling in. It was steady, real. Something to tether to when everything else felt adrift. I thought about you often, wondering if you'd felt it too. The current under the surface, pulling us both. Her gaze didn't waver, tracing my face like mapping a familiar trail. The rural dark outside mirroring the depth in her words. The air thickened with possibility, heavy as humid air before rain. Charged with what might come if I reached. Our hands brushed then, accidental as she reached for her mug, my fingers grazing hers on the table's edge. Skin met skin, warm and calloused from the same kind of work, and neither pulled away quick. The touch lingered, a spark jumping like static from wool blankets on a cold night, sending heat up my arm. I felt the weight of it, the decision pressing in, past memories colliding with this moment, the yearbook's ghosts watching from the table. Those school days, the hidden dreams we'd shared without naming, now crashed against the present, the quiet house holding our breaths. Fear twisted low, the old caution from small-town eyes. But under it ran something stronger, a release waiting like a horse breaking free at dawn. A subtle shift happened, our eyes meeting longer than before, holding in the lamplight's glow. Tension built slow, like a gathering storm over the ridges, clouds piling dark and inevitable. Her breath came even, but I saw the quicken in her chest, matching my own pulse, thudding steady against my ribs. The room's warmth wrapped us, the evening chill forgotten, possibility humming like power lines after a gust. My heart pounded harder then, forcing me inward toward the truth I'd skirted too long. The words caught in my throat, thick as the dust on the back road after a dry spell. I looked at Emma, her face steady in the lamplight, and felt the pull snap tight inside. It pulled the same way, I said, voice cracking on the edge, like splitting dry timber. All those years, I felt it too. Attractions to women, buried deep under the work and the nods to what folks expected. Not just you, though you were the one who stuck, but others I'd watched from afar, their movements cutting through the routine like a sharp blade through twine. My hands clenched on my knees, knuckles whitening against the denim as the admission spilled out. I'd denied it long, shoving it down with every fence post I'd driven and every chore that filled the dawn to dusk. The small town had taught me early. Eyes everywhere, judgments quick as a whip crack. Women like me didn't name those wants. We mended wire and hauled feed, letting the field swallow the ache. But saying it now, to her, cracked the earth open, roots exposed to the air. I leaned forward, the couch springs groaning soft, and let the school days flood back. Remember that afternoon in the hayloft? I asked, my breath shortening. We'd climbed up to hide from the rain, bales stacked high around us like walls. Your shoulder pressed mine, warm through the damp shirt, and I felt heat rise, not from the storm outside. I stared at the way rain dripped from a crack, but really I watched your neck, the curve of it lit by lightning flashes. Pulled me hard, that closeness, but fear clamped it shut. What if I lost you? The one person who made the isolation bearable, the endless acres feel less like a cage. Emma nodded slow, her eyes holding mine without a blink, the kind of unflinching that comes from riding out your own storms. She didn't interrupt, just let the words pour, her presence steady as an old oak against the wind. I kept going, voice gaining ground but still rough. There was the county fair, too, that night after the rides shut down. We walked the midway alone, lights strung dim over the empty stalls. Your hand brushed mine, reaching for a leftover prize, and I froze, heart slamming like a gate left banging in the gusts. I wanted to hold on, trace the calluses from roping, feel that pull turn real. But the fear hit. Town talk, family looks, the risk of shattering what we had. So I laughed it off, blamed the cotton candy spinning my head. Denied it every time, buried those feelings under layers of just friends, the routine of life here grinding them flat. A flush crept up my neck now, hot as sun-baked soil, betraying me before the words could. My skin prickled, chest tight under the old flannel, as if the room's warmth had turned against me. Voice cracked again on the next breath, splintering like ice under boots. And you were the anchor I couldn't name. Those walks home from school, dust kicking up around our feet, your laugh cutting the quiet. I'd catch myself staring, the way your hair fell loose after a wind, wanting to tuck it back, feel your breath close. Suppressed it all, fear of loss bigger than the want. Losing you to whispers, to doors closing in this town, it would have broken me worse than any drought. She reached out then, her hand covering mine on the table. Rough palm meeting rough palm. Solidarity warm as fresh-turned earth. No words, just that touch. Grounding the spill like a rope tossed to a rider gone astray. The contact sent a jolt, easing the knot in my gut, her fingers curling slight to hold. I met her gaze, the vulnerability raw between us, air humming with it. The release came then, emotional weight lifting like a horse breaking free from taut reins, muscles uncoiling after a long pull. Tears pricked hot at the corners of my eyes, not falling, but there, washing the dust from years of holding back. The room expanded somehow, the night outside less pressing, cricket's song turning from edge to underscore. We'd cracked open together, truth shared like tools passed hand to hand for the fix. That vulnerability stretched the moment, pulling us toward action. The unspoken, now spoken, urging the next step forward. Her hand stayed on mine, the calluses rough like shared tools from the same shed, warm against the cooling air. I turned my palm up, fingers lacing through hers slow, tentative as testing a loose rein before the ride. The touch grounded us, pulling the vulnerability into something solid, words of mutual understanding spilling easy now. I've waited years to hear that, Emma said, her voice low, thumb tracing a circle on my skin. Knew it was there, in the glances, the silences, but hearing it fits, like pieces we've both held back. I nodded, the knot in my chest easing further, her words wrapping around the ache like a steady hand on a spooked horse. We sat like that, hands linked, the yearbook pushed aside as the past made room for this. The conversation turned to what came next, future possibilities threading through the rural constraints we both knew too well. Staying here means watching every step, I said, glancing to the window where the fields lay dark and endless. Folks talk over fences, eyes sharp at the store. But maybe we find our own spaces. The river bend, the old trails where no one goes. Emma squeezed my hand, her gaze steady. I've thought on it in the city, how to build something real without the noise. We could drive out sometimes, find those quiet spots beyond the ridges. Or I come back more, make this place ours in the shadows. Her words painted it simple. Not grand promises, but practical paths, like mapping a fence line through rough ground. The constraints loomed, the isolation that hid us but also hemmed us in, church whispers and neighbor nods. But in her voice, they felt navigable, like fording a creek at low water. Laughter returned then, lighter, laced with the new honesty that stripped the old weight. I pulled my hand free gentle, reaching to tuck a stray hair behind her ear, and she caught my wrist, eyes crinkling. Remember that time we tried roping the dummy calf and ended up tangled? I asked, the memory bubbling up. She grinned, the sound starting deep in her chest. Yeah, and you blamed the wind. Now I know it was just you staring too hard. We chuckled, the ease cutting through the tension, her shoulder bumping mine deliberate. It felt different now, the humor honest, no undercurrent hidden, just us, seeing each other clear as dawn light on dew. The physical closeness grew natural from there, her body shifting nearer on the couch, knee pressing mine steady. I didn't pull away, letting the warmth build against the evening chill seeping through the cracks. The room held us close, lamp casting a soft glow on her profile, the scent of her mixing with the fading coffee and wood smoke from the stove. She draped an arm along the back, fingers brushing my shoulder light, and I leaned into it, head resting near hers. The contact sent quiet heat through me, not urgent, but deep, like sun warming soil after frost. Our breaths synced slow, the rural night outside fading to a hum, crickets and wind underscoring the pull drawing us tighter. Resolve formed in that warmth, the invitation accepted without fanfare, a quiet commitment settling like dust after the last gust. "I'm in," I murmured, turning to meet her eyes, the words simple as nodding to a shared chore. Whatever this becomes, we face it together, no more burying. Emma's smile softened, her hand finding mine again, the promise sealed in that hold. No grand oaths, just the truth of it, built on years of unspoken want now voiced. As night deepened outside, the stars pricking through the dark like distant fence lights, the story circled toward resolution, the weight lifting into something new. Morning light filtered through the curtains, pale and thin, like mist rising off the fields after a cold night. I stirred first, the couch stiff under me. Emma's arm still draped loose across my waist from where we'd dozed off, tangled in the quiet hours. The yearbook sat closed on the table now, its cover dulled by dust again, but changed. Pages heavy with what we'd uncovered. No longer just faded ink, but markers of truths we'd named. She woke slow, eyes blinking against the dawn, her hand squeezing mine once before pulling away to sit up. The air smelled of stale coffee and us, close and real. The rural hush outside, broken only by a rooster's distant call echoing from the neighbor's place. We moved to the kitchen, feet patting soft on the linoleum, brewing fresh coffee while the sun climbed higher, gilding the windowsill. Practical talk came natural then, over mugs steaming hot, about the community we both knew too well, the tight nods at the feed store, the Sunday gatherings where eyes lingered on who sat with who. "We can't parade it here," Emma said, stirring sugar slow, her gaze on the spoon like mapping a careful path. "But there's ways. That women's group in the next county over, the one for farmers' wives and such, they meet quiet, talk real things, crops, kids, and sometimes the hidden aches. I heard from a contact in the city. It's a start, no judgments, just space to breathe." I nodded, the idea settling like good soil after tilling. Something to root in without upturning the whole field. She went on, voice steady as she poured a second cup, about safe spaces beyond the town limits. Drive to the edge of the state park. There's trails where no one asks questions. Or that coffee shop in the valley, run by a couple who left the city for the quiet. They host nights, books, talks, women sharing stories without the weight. We could go together, test the ground, find our own rhythm, away from these acres that watch too close. Her words wove possibility through the constraints. Not dreams, but footholds, like staking a new fence line through rocky earth. The isolation that had trapped us felt less like walls now, more like borders we could skirt, the endless fields turning from cage to canvas. Inside, my shift built quiet, resilience rising from the raw facing of that hidden self. The admission last night had cracked me open, but morning brought strength, like muscles sore after a long haul but looser for it. I'd carried the want alone too long, buried under chores and silences, letting it twist into doubt that weighed like wet hay. Now, with it voiced, a steadiness settled. Not bold or loud, but deep, rooted in the truth we'd shared. Facing it hadn't shattered me, it anchored, the fear ebbing, like floodwater receding to reveal firmer ground. Emma's presence amplified it, her unflinching gaze a mirror showing my own resilience, forged in the same rural fires. She set her mug down, hand reaching across the table to cover mine again, the touch familiar now. "I'll head back to the city soon," she said, eyes holding mine with that quiet promise. Work calls, but this isn't goodbye. I'll return. Weekends, maybe more. We build on this truth, slow and sure, like mending what was frayed all along. Her words carried no rush, just certainty. The departure a pause, not an end. I felt the pull of it, the bond we'd reclaimed stretching across the miles, strong as wire pulled taut. The emotional payoff landed soft in that quiet certainty, connection humming like a well-tuned engine under the hood. No grand swells, just the warmth of her shoulder against mine as we stood at the sink, rinsing mugs side by side, the morning light strengthening. The fields outside waited, vast but no longer empty, holding space for what we'd begun. We lingered there, words sparse, the certainty wrapping us like a shared blanket against the coming day's work. The door closed softly behind her truck as it pulled away, the world feeling larger, yet anchored in the quiet we'd claimed. If this stirs your own hidden truths, share below. Subscribe for more stories of finding voice in the quiet.